The matrix is real. It is everything and everywhere. And not only are you in it, but you're a part of it. So, Riki, what exactly is the matrix?
It's an invisible web or an invisible force that guides all of our thoughts, actions, sometimes feelings, and funnels us to a particular place.
Do you agree that it's a real thing? I mean, you're saying it's an invisible force.
Yes, I agree. It's a real thing. I agree. So a good example, an everyday example for me would be road and traffic laws.
Yeah.
Where it's this, there's not signs everywhere saying these are the rules, this is what you've got to do. You go to another country, you kind of roughly know the rules, even though they might have different cultural kind of shifts and differences within the road rules. But everybody knows basically, don't get into an accident. Everyone roughly knows what to do when they get on the road. So it's even people without a license who haven't gone through the formal route of getting a license, they still know how to drive on the road. So
that's a really good example. I like that one because I've been driving for a long, long time. I don't know all the laws. But what I do know is how to behave on the road.
Yeah.
So that invisible force is telling me this is how you behave on the road. Of course, there are many people who don't behave well on the road, let me tell you. People in Sydney don't indicate anymore.
No.
Yeah. But yeah, that's a really good example because there's a physical network there, isn't there?
Yes.
Of roads.
Yes.
And you, the user, become
plus thousands of them. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And you become part of the matrix, don't you, of that road network once you get into a vehicle and start driving on it.
Yes.
So you're in it and a part of it.
Yes. And schools would be another one, I'd say, another example of a matrix.
Yep.
And governments, and I guess the biggest players of all would be big tech, big pharma, big food.
Big banana.
Social media, mainstream media, all of the big corporations.
Yeah, I agree with that, actually. Yeah, that sounds like big webs within bigger webs, matrices within matrices.
Yes. How about you? How would you see it?
Very similar to you. I like that you used the example of traffic, because I think that's perfect. It's a really easy way to visualize a network. So I think of a matrix as being made up of the people in it and the environment in which they live. From there, the connections are based on essentially transactions of goods and services and experiences of all sorts. And that forms what we consider life. It's the entire socio-economic system in which we live, and it's inescapable. So when you join a team, you are in the team, but you're also a part of the team. The shape of the team changes with people coming in and out of it. And it's the same with the matrix. So we want to look at the matrix, if there is such a thing. We're looking at many different matrices. So we'll examine a matrix within the matrix, and we'll see what kind of picture we can build up from there.
And demystify the matrix.
Yeah, I think so, because it's thrown about as this term that's, really evil and nefarious, but it's essential. I mean, we can't get away from it. We formed a matrix right here with the two of us. Now, we're recording this at home, but you're watching it. So now we've got a bigger matrix, don't we? The viewer. And let's hope that there's more than one person watching it. That forms a bigger matrix, right?
Yeah.
And then so on. So the shape of the matrix changes, and we wanted, like you said, demystify the whole thing.
And since we're homeschoolers, and this is not stuff that we were taught at school ourselves.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's important that we're able to discuss these things with our kids and prepare them and get them to identify matrices and know how to navigate them.
Yeah, exactly. The last thing we want is for our children to learn about this sort of stuff through two crazy people on YouTube. Because you'd never want that. All right. Now that we've established that we're two crazy people on YouTube. No, but you're right. It is really about breaking things down, because these are big questions in life. And this started out as a homeschool channel. And it's really just the stuff that we'll be discussing with our children. These are really important things, but they're big questions for everybody to consider.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
Riki, why do we have matrices? I mean, are they even necessary? I used the example of the two of us talking, and straight away that formed a matrix, right? It's made of the people in it and the transaction of goods and services or experiences. In this case, it's an experience. We're having a conversation. It's a social experience. It's also an emotional experience. Anytime you interact with another thing or person, there's some sort of emotional content there. So it's unavoidable. But what is the purpose of, I suppose, a bigger matrix?
Order. Order would be the number one reason.
And what do you mean by order?
Well, the opposite of order, I guess, would be chaos.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
on the roads, if
Okay,
you
so
didn't
going back to
have
that example, that's a good
back to
example.
roads,
Yeah.
if you didn't have some sense of order, then we'd all die.
Yeah.
So usually people are ordering themselves on their own. They don't need someone to tell them what to do, but they order themselves within a system
Yeah.
that creates, I guess, bigger systems.
Yeah. I guess the big difference is that, animals just live by the laws of nature. And I suppose that's what separates us from the animal kingdom. The moment we decided to leave that, whether it was conscious or not, whether it was a complete accident, you do your own research, make up your own mind. But that changed everything. So we had a new direction. And leaving nature, I suppose, with agriculture, we had to have an idea of what to do.
Yeah.
And I suppose that's the order. Before, we just took whatever nature gave us, right? You just picked whatever the trees happened to grow at that time of year. You just killed what kind of animals happened to be there in that area in which you lived and ate those. We made a deliberate effort, didn't we? And we had to order that in some way. So, yeah, I get that. I get the order. And that sounds well-intentioned.
And sometimes it is. Often, hopefully.
Yeah. One of the best well-intentioned matrices that I can think of is a public library. Now, you go in there and it's very ordered. You know what the rules are. I haven't read the rules of our library. Have you?
No.
But you can't go in there naked. You can't
Screaming.
You can't make too much noise. You know that you have to return the books at some point. You know you can't set them on fire. All the basic stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's all nice and ordered. It's not chaotic. And it can be. There are times when there are very young children in there running around. But, they're soon shushed.
And they've got their children's section.
Yep,
so
exactly.
they know to go over there.
So it's nice and ordered. And a great example of good leaders is the library staff. Because they're there for us. They're there purely for the customer, a great experience for the customer. I suppose they're transcendent. They're not normal customers. They don't walk in there and borrow books like the rest of us plebs. They go in there to make sure that our needs are taken care of. And then once they leave the library, of course, that power diminishes completely. They can't keep shushing us when we're, downstairs in the supermarket. But within that matrix, they use their powers for the good of the people. And I think that's really important. We'll come back to that one, I think. But that's a huge differentiating factor between a good matrix and a bad matrix.
Yeah. They're there to serve and they're happy to help.
Yeah. They're transcendent. They didn't come in like the rest of us. They came from the heavens of the library. Gods have sent them down to take care of us readers.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So let's look at how matrices work. If we look at the example of leaving the animal kingdom, I suppose that's when we first started building these matrices, even though we could say that, our little tribes were a matrix in the first place. But let's get to the more complex ones. I guess it started with a vision. It starts with a visionary, let's call them a visionary leader, someone who saw something that the rest didn't see. In this case, they saw a seed blow from one of the fruits or a tree somewhere and land in the soil, and they saw it take root and thought, I reckon we can do this a better way. We've been hungry for days. I reckon if we gather those seeds, go down to that spot over there, take a bit of land and plant them, I reckon we're going to have a reliable food supply. That's what I think happened, right? So a vision of some sort. Now, this can be anything. This can be someone starting up a search engine in their garage, or it can be the birth of agriculture. And from there, you get followers. You get someone that goes, I reckon this guy knows what he's talking about. And then that's a matrix there. Then I guess, assuming that it flourishes, those laws are made so that people know how to interact within that network. And we build it from there. Those people live and the plants grow and they do what they need to do. And naturally, based on the environment, based on the people that are there, the personalities they've got, historical events, severe weather, whatever, over time, a culture builds and grows. And you can see all over the world, we've all done agriculture in one way or another. but every culture was slightly different from region to region, and then grossly different from, country to country. So different cultures evolve, and I think this is where it really kicks off. Once you've got that layer, that cultural layer, that's where the matrix kind of becomes a thing, almost like a law unto itself. It's like it's got this different sort of consciousness. It becomes alive. This network has all this power over you, even though you're part of the network and it's made up of our conscious minds. That dynamic becomes real. It's palpable, and it takes on a shape of its own and starts controlling the people in it. Of course, from there, the leaders have to disseminate their laws, and you've got stratification. So you've got your ruling class, and you've got all your workers. And I'd say the last step of the matrix is consolidation. So power is its own end, and these rulers, they want power. They're not all transcendent librarians. Unlike librarians, they keep their power. There's no exit. The library is here, it's contained. Whereas civilization is everywhere. It's the entire universe, really. So
they don't clock off.
No. No. And this is that, I suppose, the dangerous stage of the matrix, where those with power want to consolidate, and those who see that there's an issue with that sort of power want it for themselves. So there's a power struggle. And that consolidation utilizes so many different means. We'd all love to be able to just tell someone what to do, but knowing human nature, it's just not that easy. So there are other ways to get people to do what you want them to do. And you've got your cultural leaders, your culture warriors, people essentially disseminating the right ideas that happen to keep the order. And remember, order means putting things in a certain sequence. And in terms of civilization, it means someone at the top and then someone at the bottom. And creating that order means you want to keep the people at the top, which by default means the people down here, they've got to stay where they are because they can't challenge you for power. So if you look at over time, you've always had an emperor or king or whatever, some ruler of some sort with their administrative class, their ruling class, like the high priests and media, the town crier, putting out the propaganda, getting people to think what they're supposed to think. And it really helps the king when people are going around saying, it's honourable to die for your king and country. How convenient. So that's the meaning of life, to die for that guy. Of course. And you look at all the religious art over time, it's been to keep people where they are.
Yeah. Like the frescoes that you'd see in the ceilings with all the tortured images of people not following the path that they were supposed to, and looking up and saying, my God, if I don't do this, then, my guts will be ripped out, And so it was there, not necessarily in black and white, but, in colour, because, of course, they couldn't read at the time. So it was a great way through the arts.
Yep.
And I guess today the same sort of thing happens. Look up the relationship between Hollywood and the Pentagon and see how arts shape the way we see war or how we see conflict. It's all shaped by something, by somewhere, by someone.
Exactly. The people who administer the cultural influences.
Yeah, to get people, I guess, to feel a certain way, like the guy that wants to die for his king and country. It's a great way to control people and to get people to willingly walk into the fire.
Exactly. And you mentioned that people couldn't read back then. That's why they had these frescoes controlling us through fear. Of course, some of it was inspiring as well, but a lot of it was fear-based.
Yeah.
We can't read today. I can't read everything. Okay, so the really important stuff. There was this document, it was about steroid use with athletes and how it has a long-lasting effect. So even though an athlete might, I know it sounds like I'm digressing here, but I'm not. An athlete might use steroids for a short period of time. It can have a very long-lasting effect and increase their performance for the rest of their career. And I thought, wow, that's a really interesting study. I should read that. I started reading it, and I'm like, I can't make sense of any of this. I mean, I could have really tried and looked up all these different terms, opened up textbooks and done all this cross-referencing. But me as a layperson who likes me footy, there was nothing really for me. Now, let's push that even further. Let's look at more complex things, such as health, like overall health. all the stuff to do with the gut, mental health, neurology. All we get is, the pop psychology or, the pop health, that sort of stuff. We're not really that scientifically literate. Look at something like climate change. The stuff that people are like, oh, I know it's not real because, this person said that, or I know it is real because this person said that. Really, it's just coming down to trust. Who do you trust? It's not about what do you know. And that comes down to which side of politics you're in and, what matrix is most prevalent in your life.
Yeah.
So we are still illiterate in many ways.
Yeah,
and those frescoes, and instead of frescoes, we're getting tweets, for example.
Yeah.
We're getting little memes. We're getting this and that to tell us that this is what's going to happen if you mess up. And it works.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Matrix with the Pentagon and Hollywood, when I was growing up in the 80s, I was terrified of Soviets. Because I saw Rocky IV. I was like, oh my gosh, they're so big and powerful. How are we going to defeat them? Yeah. And it was like, oh, the wholesome American will do it. Yeah. Because they don't cheat. They train out of cabins in the woods and they chop up, trees and stuff like that and move logs, whereas the Soviets, they've got all this technology and Ivan Drago is getting steroids injected into him. Oh, but not us wholesome Westerners. We're the good guys. But it did shape me, totally. And, I'm a stupid kid. Of course I'm going to listen to that sort of stuff. And now I'm a stupid adult. That's the truth. I see something like, is that true? Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. And I'm not that literate because I'm not an expert in things. I'm not an expert in international affairs either. So we're relying on good leaders in the matrix, and it just shows how controlled you can be because it comes down to trust.
Yeah. And I guess the next level of power would be technology.
Yep.
So we've got big issues with AI, facial recognition and programmable currencies and those sorts of things. Yeah. So I guess potentially these people with all the power could lock out so many people without the power if they don't perhaps follow the nudge units or all the different ways that we're funneled towards different places. If you resist that, then there's a big danger where you might be completely locked out of your matrix.
If you don't do what we tell you, we're taking away your PlayStation, right?
Yeah.
It's no different.
Yeah,
and looking at communist China, and I've got nothing against the Chinese, we've got love for everybody on this show, but we're talking about a government here that isn't in the best interest of its people. And communist China has shown us what can happen. So with their social credit system, there's no reason why that can't happen in Australia. I know of a guy, I actually played football with him. He was on a current affair. He was on one of our news shows and he went on a joyride when he was 16 or something. And he actually had his license. Well, he was banned from driving forever. Wow. This was a mistake that he made as a 16-year-old. And we were on the same footy team and I didn't know him that well. He was a bit of a dodgy character, I'll be honest. But that's a huge punishment for someone doing that at 16. I'm sure there are people watching this going, well, too bad, you've got to learn. And look, I'm not telling you how you should see the situation. I feel like he's been excluded from the matrix in a huge way forever. Now, I don't know if that's been appealed since. I saw this on TV, 20 odd years ago. But he used to hang out with a guy named Boxhead. Yeah, interesting. He was a good football player though. So we can take privileges or rights, I don't know if they're rights or privileges, take them away from people. It does happen. But the things you described, so all the tech, the AI, programmable currency, these are real high-level things and they give you almost invincible powers, right? Like in the past, if an emperor was rising up in another kingdom, they generally had the same weapons as you did. You could fight back. Whereas now, it's almost like they've got some special crystal that gives them all the power of the universe. Yeah. So it is a really dangerous time. So matrices, they're getting bigger, more complex, but the power of those in the ruling class, it's getting to a point where it's very difficult to resist and present a different point of view. Yeah. So this consolidation phase is really crucial because we have to look at how much power we're handing over. Being part of a matrix is essential and good. There's an exchange, okay? I'm going to spend my Saturday night with you. That means I don't get to sit at home playing video games, but I get something good out of it. I get good company. That's a good deal. There's a good exchange there. The problem is, with this consolidation phase, big players are getting more and more power, but are we getting more out of it? That's the issue here.
So just look at the biggest powers today with big food and big pharma and big tech. And we've sort of lost control over what goes into our foods and what we eat.
Well, that means we're losing control of what we do with our bodies.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a big deal.
Yeah. And there's also big religion, which tells you what to do with your body, especially a woman. I mean, religion is one of the original matrices. It's the OG of the matrix, really. It's been there from the beginning, and it's probably at the heart of the culture war too, that these legacy powers, such as religions, have lost a lot of power. The church used to be able to run everything. And there are countries where the preeminent religion gets to do everything. They've got all the political power. And talking about the control over the body, talking about what you wear, what you eat, how you eat it, how you cook it, everything is broken down. And it's totalitarianism. We might not live under a totalitarian government, but the totality of our lives is controlled by someone. So if you've plugged into it and you consent to that, then great. That's fine. There's things that I've outsourced to other people. For example, my car.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't take care of it. Okay, I pay the mechanic too much. That last service, $605. Wipers. I didn't even ask for the wipers.
European wipers.
We've got a Japanese car. Anyway, we've outsourced that. So the control of the car is, the mechanical gods are in control of that. And I'm fine with that. I think it's a good deal. I could spend all this time working on a car and then breaking it because I don't know what I'm doing. Or I could invest the time to learn and I'd enjoy that. But right now I don't have the time for that. So I've made a deal. I've joined this matrix and I've handed over control. That's fine. But as long as you've got a good mechanic and people aren't taking advantage of you, it's fine. But I think there are so many matrices that are there to keep you in it.
Yeah.
Not to empower you,
but
to keep you a member, to empower them and to make their leaders feel like, yes, I've got more followers.
And a good reason for discussing all this is to get our kids to think very critically about all of this and to be able to investigate. We'd like our children not to be under anyone else's control, including our own control.
Absolutely.
And to help them develop critical thinking skills and to become investigators, really, and to research and to be able to be not necessarily paranoid or suspicious.
No, definitely not.
And to be curious about people's agendas and be curious about the matrices around them.
Yeah, exactly. And they have to be part of a matrix. I'm going to keep repeating that. They have to be part of something. They're part of our family unit. That was the first matrix is the womb. And that's a good deal. You will never get a better deal than that. Custom made for the womb. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Free air conditioning, food.
Yeah, everything. Yeah, you get to kick it and they can't do anything about it. So that's the first matrix. And then you're born into your family unit. Firstly, you've got your relationship with your mother, wider family unit, the extended family, the local community, your neighbours, your building, whatever it is, preschool. So that's inescapable. So it's about learning to work within that while maintaining your sense of self. I think that's really important because we do lose ourselves and we just end up following whatever culture tells us to do. And remember, culture isn't the boss. Culture's not even real. It's made up of us. So we can safely unplug from the cultural layer of the matrix and reset as we need to. So that's where we are today in the year 2023, the 21st century. We've got all this amazing advanced technology. We're so connected, almost hardwired now. We've got devices on all the time. We're plugged in culturally, essentially 24/7.
And with the internet, it's democratized the access to knowledge. So we can find out pretty much anything we want to.
Yeah, and even those who aren't supposed to know this stuff, for example, in countries where certain texts are banned, there's a Minecraft library. So you can go into a Minecraft server that seems like it's just a game, and there's a library there with a whole bunch of banned books. So it shows how important it is to people to be free. And freedom is accessing information and knowledge and circumventing censorship. That's a really important thing. It just shows this matters to us. So all the powers that be that are listening to this, and I know you are because we've got a lot of clout, just know it's important, okay? People care.
Yeah.
We haven't given up. But when I say we haven't given up, let's look at what are the issues then. Why would I even say that comment? Well, it's because of the consolidation of power. We've got power in fewer hands. People are seemingly invincible now. They can do anything they want with their advanced technology.
Infinite power.
Yeah, we're subscribed to everything. So we're on the hook all the time. You've got your mobile phone plan for the physical essentials that you need. You've got your electricity bill. I'm not saying that, we should get free power. Don't get me wrong. But things that we used to buy are now subscription-based. Games, for example. You used to buy a game and you were done with it. Now you buy a game, you have to subscribe to your console provider, for example, PlayStation Network or Microsoft Game Pass, to play online. Because if you don't pay that, then you're disconnected from the matrix. You miss out on all these potential friends and connections. You can't do that. You've got to pay for your internet. You've got to pay for your Spotify or whatever you've got, all those streaming services. We're so plugged into so many different matrices. We're on the hook for everything, and everything's costing us a lot of money. Then there's, of course, the food that you can't get away from, that you said you can't even be healthy if you try. And if you do try, it's so expensive because health food costs more money for whatever reason. So there's just so much in this consolidation phase. So that's where we are today. All aspects of our lives are tied in to corporate interests. So knowing all that, Riki, how do we work with it? I would say, how do we free ourselves? But we've already said we can't free ourselves from matrices. We're born into them. Yeah. So how do we work within that to have a more equitable relationship with every node, every member, the matrix itself?
We have to start with ourselves.
Why do we always go back to self-knowledge? I want to outsource that.
Yeah, it has to be. If we all take responsibility for ourselves and take care of ourselves and know ourselves and find our purpose. I
thought your purpose was to serve your king and country.
Yeah, self-knowledge and self-care.
Yeah.
And then, of course, caring for those around us.
Yeah, so it really does come down to self-knowledge, doesn't it? Because you can't take care of your body. You don't know that stuff's bad for you unless you get some knowledge about the stuff and also yourself.
Yeah.
We've got different bodies. We need different things.
Yeah.
You're a woman. I'm a tiny little man. We're different. We have different needs. So you need to know what goes in your body. I need to know what goes in mine and to work optimally. But it's not just that. It's your psychology as well. You've got a totally different childhood to me. Different family, different cultural background. We're different in that sense. So you need to know yourself physically, psychologically, spiritually, and not have someone else come and dictate to you what the meaning of life is.
Yeah, exactly.
And, part of all this knowledge, we're talking about physical things here, mostly with the body. I mean, I talked about the mind as well, but we need to know how nature works. We need to know our place in nature because that's actually real. How we sit in nature is a real thing. Whereas how you sit culturally, culture isn't real. Culture evolved from this interaction. We've got our own culture. We've got our own dynamic in our relationship. But you can't touch that. It's not this, it's kind of palpable. You can feel it, but it's different. And that can change according to who's there, the moods or whatever else. So it's not this physical, tangible thing. So to understand reality, start with a grounded reality. Start with nature. Understand the ecosystem and where us as animals fit into that. I think that's a really important step. If you want to build a picture of reality, start with real things and then know what is real and what is the cultural layer. So much of what we believe is real is the cultural layer. And that's the stuff that holds us back and messes us up. I think there are so many people with certain desires that they repress, a lot of different things, purely because culture has told them one thing and their bodies are telling them another. And that messes with their minds. So if we can understand our place in nature, I think that's a huge step in finding our place in the matrix. So from there, understanding the physical layer, we can then improve our culture by improving our emotional intelligence. What that does is gives us better connections between nodes, like these nodes and then the bigger nodes, if we can understand each other better. So work on elevating that, elevate your consciousness. The whole idea of leaving the animal kingdom was because of this new consciousness we had. I don't know how we got it. Maybe we licked some mushrooms as early primates. That's one theory. And that, boom, blew our minds. That DMT got released and we saw things that no other animal had ever seen. We had a vision. And other animals of our species, followed us with that vision. And here we are today. The whole point of that, though, was to elevate our consciousness. And those leaders offered us something. They offered us a better way of looking at the world, at the universe. If you are a leader, is that what you're doing? If you're one of these culture warriors, are you genuinely trying to elevate the consciousness of others that are plugged into your matrix that you're a part of? Or are you just a grifter, being reactionary, getting emotional reactions from people to make money, to get clicks? I hope that every leader out there who's watching this wants to elevate the consciousness of those plugged into their matrix. Be better people, be transcendent, be those librarians.
Yeah.
Okay, be there for the people, not to fatten your own pockets.
And we need to know that we're not obliged to take part in every single layer of the matrix or every single node of the matrix. There are things we can do, like, we could throw our TV out the window. We don't have to have that.
We could.
Message, those messages coming into our home all the time. I know they come through in other ways, but then at least you can be a little bit more selective. You can disconnect or unplug. You don't have to go through the whole education system the way it's handed to you. You can go your own way. You can do homeschooling if you so choose. There are so many ways that you can separate yourself a little bit, create a little bit of space.
Yep.
And focus on matrices closer to home, and then build strengths that way. And then, of course, you're interacting with all the other matrices around you. But if you focus on the ones that closest to home, I think that's a choice as well.
They're a lot more real, and they matter. Yeah. And you can unplug from the social ones that don't serve you. You don't have to follow what everyone else is doing in your tribe. Let them go their way. No judgment, but it's not for you. Don't do it. I've seen articles when people say they give up drinking and people look at them weird. Who cares? We are weird. Anything other than being an animal is weird. If aliens were watching us, they'd be like, what are they doing? So just be yourself. Now, I just want to give a disclaimer. You might hear culture warriors talk about the matrix and how it's this evil thing. What they're not telling you is they're part of their own matrix. So just be really careful of that. And everything that they're promoting is still consumerism, and the money still flows to the same places. The corporate powers, the corporate interests, might be a different one, but usually it's the same kind of people at the top. It's easy to think that you're part of the rebellion when really you're just part of another matrix, when really you're just following a different leader. Yeah, I don't like that. I'm just going to use a random colour that's inoffensive. Beige team. I'm not part of the beige team. I'm part of the brown team. Yeah. You're still part of a team and you're still following a whole different set of rules. You're still handing your mind over to someone else. So you're still playing follow the leader. Just be really careful. And if someone's trying to get you to follow something, then it's just a person with an agenda. And that's not transcendent at all. So transcend and look to be inspired by the right people who want the best for you, who aren't trying to usher you towards the thing that they're into. For example, in our family, I'm vegetarian. The rest of you are meat eaters. Not once have I encouraged anyone to do what I do. I'm here to serve my family. I'm a transcendent father. I'm kidding. Look, thank you so much for joining us. We know that was a bit of a long one. We hope that's demystified the matrix for you. It's a real thing. It's everything. But at the same time, you can empower yourself by knowing yourself and interacting with it in a way that serves you and is equitable. If we've left anything out, please leave a comment below. If you liked it, please give us a thumbs up. Subscribe if you'd like to. And we'll see you in the next one. Thank you.
Thanks.